All right, folks, welcome back. We're getting into game number 1 of the semifinals for this week's Olimoleague. It is a best of 3 still, so nothing much has changed there, but 2 fantastic players in this faux BlizzCon 2016 semifinals rematch. In the top left side of the map, we have none other than the blue Terran. It's ByuN.
And in the bottom left was the red Protoss. He is Stats.
Now, of course, as we reference those BlizzCon semifinals, it was, of course, Stats who ended up losing, and ByuN took that to go to the finals, fighting against Dark and winning over there. But the one thing I remember from watching those games, and getting to see it live was certainly really cool, but was ByuN had such a bigger reaction to beating Stats than he did when he beat Dark and won the finals. Like, he beat Dark and it was kind of like, yeah, get to the stage, hug the trophy and all that, but you could see in the booth, like, the reactions were a lot, I think, more, there's just more power in beating Stats. And a lot of that stemmed from the fact that we knew from talking to him and casting him in the Olimoleague for so long, like, he really does not like playing against Protoss. And I thought that was very much, has continued to be the case for some time. Stats is also a really good Protoss player. Oh, this is really annoying. Just gotta repair up the SCV a little bit. He's a good Protoss player too, so this is not going to be an easy matchup for ByuN, but he has been playing only Protoss all day.
Yeah, I think he's in the mood for it, or in the mindset for it, rather. I don't know whether he's in the mood, but certainly in the mindset. Has a very greedy opener on Whirlwind, which Stats tried to stall out, but didn't quite work.
I mean, he's successfully managed to have 3 SCVs waste their time on this command center, so that probe kind of got its job.
Kind of, yeah, for sure. Definitely wanted to kill that SCV, though, considering how low it was.
Yeah,
it was
4 health, by the way. To give context, that means there was a slight repair on it, and it was actually negative health in context of what its base health is.
It was a 3 racks follow-up to the command center first, instead of 2 into a factory. So it's going to be a lot of bio units on the ground. Stats probably won't really be able to abuse the situation. He knows it was command center first. He knows that ByuN is basically going to get away with greed, and he didn't. I think Stats probably went for a gateway expand, if I had to guess. It just is the only thing that's going to be super safe against a Reaper that comes at a decent time, but I actually was not looking for myself to be wrong.
Well, of course, the Marines are going to be able to catch this Adept. This is going to be really annoying. As it transfers through to the main, and it'll get some scouting, but, I mean, honestly, the SCVs could kill it at this point. The Marines clean that up pretty quick, though, and no real problems for ByuN so far. Just, I guess, minor annoyances. The push, though, Marines, we've actually seen this push. It gets to, like, 12 plus, sometimes even 1 Marauder's thrown into the mix, but the point is you don't necessarily need a factory to get damage done. Behind this, like, what's going to be at home for Stats? Barely 1 overcharge. Okay, you wait it out, then you push in with your stim Marines and everything dies. That's if everything goes according to plan. But ByuN also still doesn't know where Stats spawned yet either, which is a little bit awkward, so he might not be able to get that definitive and decisive push.
Yeah, that's a little bit surprising, you know, especially if you go for command center first. You think that you would go ahead and send an SCV out, but no, he didn't care. That's funny enough, I guess. Stats, you think first and foremost about maybe a push or some pressure to take advantage of someone who went for command center first, but a Dark Shrine might have been the better move.
Well, actually, I'm wondering if ByuN... So I look at this build out of ByuN, and we've seen this before, and I thought it was going to be really aggressive, but I'm wondering how much this may have also been influenced a little bit defensive. Worried about, like, Stargate opener because of the command center, and keeping those Marines at the exact amount to kill an Oracle in those mineral lines. I mean, I'm not going to confuse strategy and build with playing safe, but I'm just saying I wonder how much of that was influenced on maybe there's a proxy coming.
Yeah, maybe. I do like this version of the command center first build, though. If you're going to do a command center first, I prefer it over the faster medevacs, in case they do decide to try and press you, because they saw that you went for command center first, basically. But
yeah, and if you're watching somebody like ByuN too, you're expecting him to do a lot with a little, so you give him a lot to units to work with. And anyways, like I said, better Marauder with this paired up, might go for that push in a moment's time. While this happens, though, Stats is coming to the main with a War Prism. Couple of Adepts inside this, but ByuN's put these depots all along the edge of his base. He'll see this coming.
That third one seemed unnecessary. Well, this one definitely is unnecessary, but he really wanted to see the War Prism coming, and he has enough units to spread around. He also has enough production, because it's the 3 barracks, that he could push out when medevacs are ready, and he'd probably be able to deal with it. but don't rally your units forward. You know there's a War Prism.
Yeah. Stim is completed at this point, by the way. +1 combat shells coming up next. Stalkers at the front. They pick off a couple of SCVs that were left behind, but really not able to get past that bunker too easily. The Robo's kind of interesting to see, and I'm wondering if Stats is going to just crank out a Colossus really quick. If he does, and he is, that's actually not going to be a problem. One Colossus, even if it had extended thermal lance by some magical reasoning, lots of stimmed bio can just concave on it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, this seems so far to be an excellent defense. I like the quick pickup too. You definitely want the Medivacs, but if you feel like they're not going to continue with the War Prism, then pick up the units as well. And this is going to be hitting with combat shields.
Yeah.
Can Stats hold on? He has 2 pylons. He's kind of ready for this. He's going to have a Guardian Shield as well. I think his army's good enough.
Guardian Shield's going to help out probably the most of anything in this, because that +1 weapons from ByuN otherwise would be just so devastating.
I mean, it's a very scary army for both sides, so as long as Stats doesn't severely miss micro or lacked pylon,
He's just going to focus down that pylon. That was nice.
Well, no force field, so ByuN can stay on this ramp. It's a little dangerous. As I said, I think Stats really does have enough, especially with the Colossus now, but...
Yeah. If he catches any part of this army on its own, he can certainly kill it. 2 more Medivacs coming out, though, and this is where the magic of ByuN really starts shining through, because once he starts attacking, he almost doesn't stop. And his macro's so magical and good, getting this 3rd base will be just second nature to him. So Stats is going to not probably just be fighting a frontline army, but I imagine there's going to be a drop snuck off to the side once he realizes, hey, that mothership core's out of energy, or things like this.
Might be worth channeling those rocks if he's really going to pressure this point, but no.
Dives the pylon, goes to the Colossus. He gets both of them. No, the Colossus actually lives a little bit longer, but stims into it. Beyond, of course, the man who's known for killing Colossus with 2 Marines does manage to just destroy the army, and it was unfair. It was just, it's ByuN you're fighting against, man. What can you really say other than that? He stims, catches all the probes. Stalkers come back in desperately, but Stalkers are going to die. Another Colossus comes. This might actually push him to the main, and if he goes to the main, there's nothing over there to defend because it's all at the 3rd. He knows this, too.
Yeah. Definitely snipe the Robo, I would say, if he sees it. Stalkers, they made a mistake. Stalkers wouldn't be enough anyway, even if they're all over here.
Yeah, ByuN's doing the pickup drop micro he's known so well for. Keeps that Marauder alive, no focus fire there. GG's. And ByuN storms that game with an 8-minute victory.
That was not supposed to happen, I want to say. Like, nothing really happened in that game to say that a simple push-in was going to be able to demolish Stats, but you can say if Stats maybe took his gas to the 3rd a little bit earlier and had 2 extra sentries, that's 2 force fields that save the Colossus, perhaps. Or, I would say, if he was just staying at his 3rd base, he let ByuN up that ramp.
Yeah, I mean, there's no force fields. I think Guardian Shield's the better choice over force fields, but the fact that there's no way to control that ramp, just guaranteed things will get bad. But really quick, apologies, guys. I have been costing me and Zombie Grub some bucks tonight. I keep forgetting to play commercials, so it's been about 40 minutes since our last ad, despite little ad breaks. So I'm going to play an ad here, and we'll get to game number 2 in just a moment. All right, folks, we got the ad break a little bit early to get back in time for the map to load in. It is game number 2 in this best of 3, and oh man, ByuN just so good. So good. We'll see if Stats can recover. Top left side of the map. Oh, that's an early SCV leaving the base. Top left side of the map, it's going to be Splice's Stats.
In the bottom right has the Red Terran. He is ByuN.
Now, ByuN has actually been known to proxy things against Protoss for a long time, whether it was Frozen Temple, like maps seasons ago or otherwise. This early SCV is certainly suspicious, to say the least, but I am wondering like what kind of proxy this will be. Is he going to go for a barracks?
Yeah, well, for sure.
I mean,
no, he's going to go for a proxy supply depot.
Well, no, but I mean, there's versions where you do the barracks at home, but then proxy the factory and the starport, right? So I was really curious like how he is planning to handle it.
It wouldn't be that early of an SCV proxy then. But I get your point.
Yeah.
I think more it's a question of does he follow up with proxying that too, as well as the barracks.
I gotta imagine he will. But the thing about this proxy that's so neat is it's gonna likely open with a Reaper, and this one Reaper really is not meant to get away with a lot. But generally speaking, a good Reaper proxy like this will get about 4 probes and distract a little bit while you move forward. But Stats is building in a very interesting way where he might be able to block off one of the Reaper paths.
I like this. I think that he is more than aware that ByuN will do proxies. And this not only helps against the regular Reaper anyway, it really will deter, proxy Reaper as well. Plus, if ByuN was hoping that Stats look at that last game, like, well, Command Center first, I guess I'll go for a, Nexus after Gateway, the usual build. He was wrong, Stats specifically looked for the proxy and his bolts to it.
So, by the way, Bunker in the natural, combined with a factory going down at home. A very odd way for this to open, to say the least. But that Reaper is going to come out, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get the damage done that he wants it to. The Bunker gets canceled. This kind of already sucks. But there's 2 probes for him to pick off right here without even having to go to the main.
Oh, not bad at all. Oh my gosh, not bad at all. Of course, that Zealot's never going to kill a Reaper, but if it gets a slice, if it stops it from microing into a mineral line, then that's all good news. Honestly, I think the best thing about that Zealot was that it stopped the Bunker from getting up. Also, Stats did not underestimate this and try and get a Nexus, because there's been a couple of games where, the Reaper's supposed to get in the mineral line, kill 3 or 4 probes, but the Protoss knows that and decides to expand anyway, considering, okay, I'll just take the damage. And then the Bunker gets finished, and they're like, oh shit. Well, now I have this Nexus that I can't use. And I think even once we saw ByuN cancel the Nexus, which was insane.
Yeah.
It's 1 Reaper and 1 Marine. I'm not supposed to do that, so.
By the way,
not.
The Cyclone's not so weird, but what do you think about this Engineer Bay? I'm sorry, this is just so weird to see put down so quick.
I think, because the Bunker did 2 things, right? It one would have injured a Nexus, it also scouted lack of Nexus, and the Reaper would have done that anyway. I think he's really scared there's a Stargate in the main he hasn't scouted yet. Which is usually a very viable fear, but Stats went for a Robo instead.
Well, by the way, that Reaper only got 2 probes earlier and was marked as a bit of a failure. Gets another 2 probes now, and this ends up being that successful 4 we had mentioned earlier. So getting away with a lot, plus, of course, scouting. In fact, the Reaper's actually going to get out of this alive.
That's a very nice Reaper.
Meanwhile, Cyclone was so well positioned, it goes for the cancel. No pylons coming down over here, so no overcharge is available, and Stats is left in a bit of an awkward spot because 2 Cyclones can kill a Mothership Core if she stays in range for too long.
Yeah. 2 Cyclones can. 1 Cyclone would take quite a while.
1 Cyclone cries.
Stats is now going for a Stargate, but I think he might have realized...
Okay.
I think he realized the Robo might not actually be that great of a choice. Now, typically, I think the follow-up would be a, perhaps, well... Not always. Sometimes it's a Widow Mine drop, which obviously having detection, like an observer is very helpful, but I would say not always. It sometimes can be a tank follow-up if the factory's proxy, it can be a Cyclone follow-up if it's ByuN or the Innovation. And the Stargate, I think, would have been a better option right off the bat, but it may not matter. It might just be an order of things, and I'll have the Stargate units prepared for the Liberator.
I still think that the Tornado Blaster weapon should be called the Beehive Blaster or something. It's got alliteration. It's just more representative.
Either way, it sounds very sexual. What?
What?
Have you ever seen the fan who said that it sounds like a porn movie?
No, but that's actually pretty good. I was going to say, France has changed you, lady. But, alright, Liberator sets up in the main. It is getting cleaned up by a Phoenix, so this will get another couple of probes, but for ByuN, having killed, what's that, almost 10 workers at this point? 9 workers to be precise. His command center was a lot later. He doesn't have a lot of his own SCVs. He's certainly ahead, but not by, crazy amounts that you would expect after watching all this damage go down.
I would say it is about what I expect, because the Nexus of Stats was late. ByuN being 5 workers ahead, plus now having almost having double mules. Yeah, that's what I would expect. Stats... he might have defended against the Reaper technically, but the fact that he had to defend against the Reaper like he did and then was paranoid of follow-up pressure really threw off his macro game.
Yeah, actually, seeing the second Zealot was really weird, too.
Yeah, he was a little bit over-defensive, I would say. And it's ruined him.
Well, I think if ByuN had done anything other than the Cyclone follow-up to this, like goes for a tank, goes for Widow Mines, he actually wouldn't have been able to deal with the pylon, and I think Stats is 2 Adepts, 2 Zealots, and possibly the Overcharge would have killed a lot of other Terrans in this game.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that might have been able to break down the supply depot and continued on, so that's certainly true, but it did not. It was a Cyclone follow-up, and Stats is feeling the burn, I would say. He's going to have decent tech with a Robotics Bay finishing up, but I'm not if he goes for a Colossus, I just don't think he'll have enough of an army to buffer for it. If he goes for a Disruptor, he's going to have to hope that it gets a really awesome hit. Oh, 3 Cyclones might actually kill an Oracle? No, not even. Alright then.
Cyclone damage is... It went from being crazy good to crazy meh. And it's like meh in 2 different regards, right? Like the high-powered attack is cool, but rarely do you ever get to just sit there and like tunnel on something. You usually have to work at it, or kite, or not really utilize the fast attack speed. The Oracle, of course, dipping in, getting some kills. This is some nice payback out of stats, because ByuN, of course, pissed him off probably with those attacks.
Yes, he certainly did. 6 SCVs helps. Now stats is 7 SCVs ahead, which seems a little bit better, but I still think you want to be a little bit more. Plus at 7 minutes. Actually, I guess if you're going Colossus, maybe you're still waiting for that 3rd base, but oh well. The point is, ByuN is going to have Stim, he's going to have Medivacs, and he's going to have a pretty damn good looking army, especially if he gets in a proper position with 2 tanks and 3 Cyclones. And stats might have Colossus, but I don't know how good his ground army is going to look. It's going to be upgradeless, you know, no Blink, no Resident Enclaves, and it's going to be pretty small in general. Does he already? No, he doesn't have 13, doesn't he? No. But preparing for one. Okay.
Yeah, knocking down the rocks and setting up the base. It's kind of cool to still see so many Cyclones made, but I love the tank add-ons, obviously. One of the greatest things we've seen is just like, if you get tanks firing away against Colossus just don't stand a chance, even with extended thermal lance. So I think the Cyclones hanging back should be able to protect them from any adepts that transfer on top, or like stalkers that would blink into them. And the tank should really be able to do the damage he needs.
Stats is trying his best to get into a decent position. He is down about 10 army supply, but the photon overcharges are going to be available, and a second Colossus will also be available. So it's really not as bad of an army as they thought it was going to be.
The army's not bad, but the positioning's certainly going to be, right? Like, ByuN gets to create these zones with the tank fire and the Liberator setup.
Yeah. Not much to deal with that, you know? Even if he had Blink, it'd only be 4 Stalkers. If he had 10 Stalkers but no Blink, that's still pretty bad, too, and that will certainly be a problem. It's only 1 Liberator, you know? If this was, you know, Reactor... Oh, there you go. If this was Reactor, then it's a serious problem.
And it was. So the first one's going to go down, but he pulls back to try and cover this. Those 2 Liberators doing nothing. Could and should be repositioned, but ByuN's busy trying to kite in with the Marines, with the Cyclones. He's pushing back the Colossus. No focus fire over there, but he's diving a little bit deep, and I think he wants the Colossus. It's going to cost him if he goes further, though. Repairing a lot of this damage is not easily done. Those Liberators now have to reposition themselves, too, as he pushes up the ramp. Of course, he's got the damage to kill the Nexus. It's Stats who has to respond.
Well, he certainly can't take care of the Liberators, so if they start sieging forward, then that's just going to be a dead Nexus no matter what. He's not getting any answers for it either. Like, you know, you couldn't really wait for Blink, and he doesn't even have a Twilight Council, so he definitely couldn't wait for Blink. But I was going to say, he does have a Stargate. Trying to get a Void Ray, trying to get like 6 Phoenix might have been a better option than warping in more Stalkers.
The Void Ray is an interesting option, because at least it'll deal with the Liberators better, if nothing else. But yeah, obviously, if you can control the air, then you sit on top of the tanks. Took a long time, one of the Cyclones finally died. Looks like those tanks are going to try and change their focus fire a little bit. Except ByuN wants to take that fight, knowing he'll eventually get the Nexus. And he will. There we go. Other side of the map, though, this Oracle managed to cancel the SCV building the 3rd, and ByuN's not replaced that yet. He's so focused on the front line, so we'll see if he realizes that, because he's not exactly pulling ahead with his own 3rd. His army still looks good, and his supply's not bad. But that 3rd base is not being built as we speak.
Yeah, you know, the one upside of stat position.
Oh, here we go.
The Void Ray does pop out, but it's going to be a little bit difficult to micro when the Marines start covering. The Liberators, that was just a freebie, because ByuN was out of position, so that shouldn't happen again.
Yeah, there's Wood of Mines here, too. A Wood of Mine won't kill a Void Ray, but it will take it really, really low. Of course, as these Colossus try to position themselves, those tanks shoot for like 75 a shot or something like that. 70, excuse me, no upgrades. So it's hard for stats to move. He's
slowly losing this game, but he is losing it. For Colossus, if this was a giant Marine ball, okay, then you know, that's pretty good. But the tanks, the Liberators, there's a couple Marauders even, still wouldn't be able to hold up. Stats is eventually going to have to try and push out. It has to happen. He needs a 3rd base, but I think it's going to go very poorly. He needs to break out and then immediately counterattack. Well, and I don't know if he'd have enough of an army.
You should see Fear Dragon about that.
No, breaking out. What an easy peasy pun.
Oh, she hasn't done that for a while, huh? It's in Ladder Heroes, and more
Yeah.
Ladder Heroes.
I don't think he did it at all for this year.
Wooden Mines, by the way, are going to friendly fire a lot of ByuN's own units, so that kind of sucks. Tanks do get uprooted, so to speak. They're dead, but that Liberator still holds its position not too badly. The Stalker's going to kill up, and that's going to cost him all the Stalkers. This will, however, still be pushed back, but at the cost of still no third base for the last, 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah. You know, really, if Stats had a Warp Prism and immediately countered, maybe you could do something with 4 Colossus and a couple of Stalker Warp-ins, but he's not counterattacking. He's going to try and build up the ground army, which, again, does not have their tech upgrade, like, whatever you want to call those upgrades, Blink and Resonant Glaze, basically, right? Like, they're going to have 1-1, which is great. Now he matches ByuN, but he can't actually really utilize Stalkers as well as they should be at this point.
Well,
12 minutes in with Twilight Council.
ByuN's push out is interesting here because the Vikings, the Marauders, he has so much anti-Colossus here, and Stats really doesn't have a lot to buffer. I mean, the Stalkers might be able to snipe off some units, but there's not that many Zealots. They don't really have much. They don't even have charge, so getting into the bio is kind of out of the question.
I think ByuN is constantly aware that Blink could have finished up at any point. I think this just confirmed that it's not
what a mine shot.
on the way.
What a mine shot hits all the Stalkers. That's really nice. Voideries want to get in. They're overcharged. They're prismatically aligned. They're trying to finish them off. But the Vikings, some nice kiting. I got to say, ByuN's doing a lot of great hit and run. But now he just kind of moves into the army. Scary thing is, though, Colossus have nothing left to guard them. So whether it's Marines, Stalkers, Vikings, it doesn't matter. The Warp Prism Micro is actually pretty sick out of Stats. But that army in the air is just a little bit too much nonetheless. And this is going to be the death of him.
Yeah. He lasted, what, 4 or 5 minutes longer than anticipated, but the Stalkers do not hold up well against Vikings anymore.
Nope.
Yeah.
The probes transferring into their death. GG's get called, and ByuN will take the series 2-0. Moving on to the grand finals. Also, shout out to Cats, just hosted the stream. Hello, Cats' viewers. Hope you guys are having a good night. Unfortunately, all the Zerg are gone at this point. Feels bad, man. But Billowy and Hero coming up next in a PvP will be the other semifinals. We're going to go to a commercial break, and I need to grab a snack, and we'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. So still one more semifinals and the grand finals for those just tuning in.